I'm here to continue our discussion on the topic of disclosures in annual report. This is going to be part 2 of our lectures on disclosures in annual report of a company. So in the previous lecture of mine, I told you about the broad classification of disclosures in the annual report of a company, and there we talked about mandatory and voluntary disclosures. Under mandatory disclosure category, we talked about disclosures as per the provisions of Companies Act 2013, and there we had a discussion about the auditor's report. Now I shall be continuing our discussion under the disclosure of under the mandatory disclosures as per the provisions of Companies Act 2013, and the second segment of that belongs to director's report, which is another important aspect of mandatory disclosures in the annual report of a company. So here comes section 134 of Companies Act 2013, which stipulates that every year the director's report is required to be attached to the financial statements. So every year, whenever company is coming to the shareholders, coming to the stakeholders in the annual general meeting, they are supposed to provide a report by board of directors, which is attached to the financial statements. Now the question comes, what is the need of having the board's report? What is the need of, what is the rationale behind stipulating, having this kind of stipulation under section 134 of Companies Act 2013? The basic need is, to ensure that the directors do communicate with the stakeholders. It is basically a formal communication from the board of directors to the shareholders. In this report, they are actually addressing to the shareholders, and this report carries out a review of company's affairs for the year gone by, and it also covers any significant development which might have taken place from the last financial year to the current financial year. So directors are actually reporting that what is going on in terms of company's financial affairs, whatever company has done during a period of 1 year. This is the place where directors are communicating formally to the stakeholders. So the question comes, what is the layout of director's report, what it includes? It includes so many things. There are various aspects of director's report, starting with the director's responsibility statement. This is very important. Now here comes the director's responsibility statement, which actually becomes a beginning point for director's report. It states that they had laid down internal financial controls which is to be followed by the company. In this statement, directors are actually you can say declaring, or you can say they are taking a responsibility. They are issuing a note that they have laid down internal financial controls which is supposed to be followed by the company, so that shareholders may rest assured that internal financial control in the company is sound, and there is a proper system to have control over financial transactions. And remember, such internal financial controls are adequate and they are operating efficiently. That is something which they are supposed to declare to the shareholders. So not only they have to declare that there is a system in place, but they have to actually declare that, they have to actually announce that or admit that in front of shareholders that the internal financial controls which we have developed, which is there in place, is adequate and they are operating effectively and efficiently. So it is the responsibility on the basis of as a representative of your shareholders, it is the responsibility of directors to ensure that internal financial control system is in place in the company and it is operating efficiently and effectively. And remember, they are also supposed to declare in their responsibility statement that proper systems to ensure compliance with the provisions of all applicable laws. It is not only Companies Act, but whichever law is applicable for your company, for our company, they have to give a declaration that we have developed a mechanism, we have developed a proper system to ensure compliance with the provision of all applicable laws which are in place and they are adequate. So suppose if I am talking about a bank, so a bank is supposed to be governed by or regulated by Banking Regulation Act 1949. But what if I am talking about a company where apart from Companies Act 2013, companies dealing into foreign exchange also? So there comes another regulation called FEMA, Foreign Exchange Management Act 1999. So the provisions of FEMA is also applicable on that company. So directors are issuing a responsibility statement in which they are stating that we not only have a proper internal financial control system, but we are also having a proper system to ensure compliance with all applicable laws which are in place, and they are not only there in place but they are adequate. So statement on declaration which is given by by the director includes what? It includes that everything is in proper place and it is working efficiently and effectively. Apart from this, apart from their responsibility statement, they have to provide a declaration given by independent directors that they meet the criteria of independence. Now the question comes, what do we mean by independent directors, and on what basis can we call a director to be independent? Remember, any director is called to be independent provided he meets out certain criteria. What are those criteria? Number one is that the person should not be related to the execution part of the company. He should not be from the executive board of the company. The person should not be related to the KMPs, key managerial personnel of the company, where the person is performing as executive director or executive member of any committee. So he should not be in the execution mode of he should not be in the executive role of the company, first. Second is, the person should not have any interest into the financial performance of the company, because if you have a vested interest, then obviously you cannot be independent. So these are two broad criteria on the basis of which you can be called as independent directors. So it is the board director's statement where the directors have to provide a statement on declaration given by independent directors that yes, all independent directors who are on the board of the company, they meet the criteria of independence. So that, now what is the motive behind having independent directors? What is the objective behind roping in these independent directors into the company? Your objective is to elevate the standard of reporting from the perspective of corporate governance. So you have to improve your reporting standards or governance standards. That's why you are having independent directors who are not having any interest into the company, but they are there to advise you wherever directors are getting misled by some information or they are not acting properly. It is the duty of independent director to guide them, to tell them what is in interest of general public, what is in interest of shareholders, what is in interest of company. That is something which should always be given the prime importance. It should always be given the utmost importance. Next, after this declaration on declaration given by independent directors, they have to provide information regarding company's policy on directors appointment and remuneration. So what is the policy, on what basis we are appointing directors, what is the criteria for payment of remuneration, whether they are as per the provisions of Companies Act 2013 or not. So everything they have to disclose, that on what basis they have appointed directors, what is the rotational retirement term, that on what basis they will be retiring, what is the basis of appointing them, what is the basis of removing a director, suppose if there is some problem. So everything they have to disclose in their annual report, that if some director has retired, so that is also something which need to be disclosed in the annual report of a company. If you look at the director's report, you will understand that director is basically, board of directors are basically performing as a representative of shareholders. So they have to report what they have done, whatever they have ensured, whatever duties and responsibilities they have been assigned, whether they have performed it properly or not. They have to actually give a declaration on that. They have to give a detail about that to the shareholders. Not only this, they have to also provide explanation or comments by the board on every qualification, reservation or adverse remark or disclaimer. If there is any qualification in the report, if there is any reservation observed by the auditor, or if there is any adverse remark or disclaimer made by either auditor in his report or by the company secretary in his secretarial audit report, they have to disclose it to the shareholders. That see, this is something which has come to the fore, this has come to the light. Auditors have given these remarks in their report, and company secretary in practice in his or her secretarial audit report, they have given these remarks. what is the motive? Motive is that you should disclose everything to the shareholders. So when a shareholder is going through the director's report, he or she comes to know that what director has to say has been actually written there. So they explain everything. So if there is something positive, that need to be explained, but on the contrary, if there is something negative, that also need to be reported to the shareholders. So everything, either positive or negative or neutral, everything has to be reported into this report of directors. Now, particulars of contracts or arrangements with related parties. This is very important aspect of directors report. We call it RPTs, related party transactions. Now, if there is some related party transaction, that also need to be disclosed. Now, what is the related party? For your understanding, you can just take it as, if a company is dealing with any other company in which it has some stake, either it is a subsidiary company or it is a subsidiary of your subsidiary company, or in some way you can influence the decision of the company, or you have control over the board of the company, then obviously that company will be your related party. So if there is some related party transaction, you need to disclose it into the directors report. So directors are supposed to report it in their formal communication to the shareholders, that whatever is the condition of RPT, that is related party transaction, the name of the company with which we have transacted, the amount of transaction, the size, the date, everything need to be disclosed, so that the shareholder who is going through the report or the investor who is going through the report can have a fair idea about the transactions which have taken place with the related parties. And the state of the company's affairs, highlighting business performance and financial overview, is also part of the director's report. The amount which it proposes to carry on to reserve, suppose board has decided to transfer certain amount to some reserves, that also need to be reported into the director's report. Suppose if they are deciding that they are proposing that some part of profit need to be declared as dividend, whereas some part need to be retained into the company for the betterment of the company or for the future, for the smooth functioning of the company. So the amount which directors are proposing or recommending to be paid by the way of dividend, that also is the part and parcel of the director's report. Apart from that, whatever policy they have for conservation of energy, technology absorption, and foreign exchange earnings and outgo, that also is the part of the director's report. So in nutshell, I would say director's report is a report where director is formally communicating to their appointing authority, who has elected directors, the shareholders. So they are actually reporting it to the stakeholders, to the shareholders in general, that this is what we have performed, this is what has been the performance of the company in terms of legal compliance, in terms of financial position, in terms of profitability, and if there is something negative, that also need to be reported. So it is a brief and formal communication between the director and the shareholders. It is basically signed by the chairman. You can go to the annual report of any company, and under the statutory report, simply go search for director's report, and you will find that normally it runs into 5 to 6 pages, depending on the type of company it is, the size of the company, and they actually disclose everything. So I have tried to tell you the integral or key components of director's report. After auditor's report, we talked about director's report. Now the third one under the mandatory disclosure as per the provisions of Companies Act 2013 is details regarding subsidiary companies. Before I tell you about the details regarding subsidiary companies, what is supposed to be reported, let's first understand what do we mean by subsidiary company. Suppose if I am a company A and you are company B, and I am holding more than 50% shares of yours, that is company B. It means I became your holding company, I become your holding company, and you become my subsidiary company, cause you have 49% shares in your company, and I am holding 51% shares of your company, because I have told you that more than 50% shares I need to hold. So even if it is 1% greater than that suppose if I hold 51% shares of your company, I become a holding company and you become my subsidiary. So in case of subsidiary, what is the implication of it? I am in a position to influence your decision making process. I am in a position to influence your board of directors, cause obviously when I have majority of the shares, majority wins, cause decisions are being taken by you can say resolutions, ordinary resolutions, special resolutions, where 2/3 of voting is being done. So on the basis of voting, everything is being executed in the company. So we have to understand the subsidiary company. If I want to understand what is subsidiary company, I need to first understand what is holding company. So the one which is holding a significant part of your majority of your shareholdings, that company becomes holding and you become subsidiary to that, right? So as per section 129, section 129 of Companies Act 2013, it stipulates that you have to, as a company, a statement containing the salient features of financial statements of subsidiary is supposed to be attached with the financial statements of holding company. So when I am reporting the financial statements of holding company, as per the provisions of section 129 of Companies Act 2013, I have to attach the statement for my subsidiaries. So I am not only reporting about my own performance, but also about my subsidiaries. And remember, some people by mistake they are actually assuming that since we have provided consolidated financial statement, there is no need to provide details regarding subsidiary companies. That is wrong. It has the section 129 clearly indicates that it is this provision is in addition to the requirement of preparing and presenting consolidated financial statement. So apart from your standalone financial statement, you do prepare your consolidated financial statement. And this section 129 of Companies Act 2013 stipulates that it mandates that you have to provide details regarding the financial performance of your subsidiary company. Whatever they are doing, whatever is their financial position, you have to attach their financial performance. So this was in brief I told you about the mandatory disclosures as per the provisions of Companies Act 2013. I didn't go through all the rules and regulations and sections, subsections initially, just to avoid complexity of provisions, just to offer you a brief understanding, a better understanding of what is there into the mandatory disclosure as per provisions of Companies Act 2013. But that doesn't mean that I can avoid those sections, subsections. For your understanding, for your knowledge and information, I am telling you in brief what are those disclosures which you are supposed to provide as per different sections, subsections of Companies Act 2013. So if I talk about the content of the report and relevant act and rules, I'll be starting with the first part, that is financial summary, highlights, operations, state of affairs, which is actually your balance sheet. For this section 134 rule 8 clause 5 subclause 1 of the Companies Act rules 2014 stipulates that you have to provide financial summary, you have to provide highlights, operations and state of affairs of your company. So this is as per the provisions of section 134 rule 8, right? Again, moving ahead, section 134 subsection 3 clause I, it says that you have to provide details regarding events subsequent to the date of financial statement. So event occurring after the balance sheet date, whatever has occurred, you have to provide the details about that as per section 134 subsection 3 clause I. Apart from this, rule 8 rule 8 subsection 2 of Companies Accounts rule 2014 again prescribes that if there is any change in the nature of your business, if it is there, you have to report about that also. Again, if dividend, if you are declaring the dividend, the amount of dividend, if any, carried forward to reserves, that also need to be disclosed. And for that we have another section called section 134 subsection 3 clause K and J, which prescribes that you have to declare the dividend, if you have declared what is the amount of dividend, and if you have transferred some part of dividend to some part of profit to reserves, that also need to be disclosed. Moving ahead, suppose if you have number of board meetings, whatever has been held during the year, that also need to be disclosed as per section 134 subsection 3 clause B of Companies Act 2013. directors responsibility statement, directors and KMPs, to which we call as key managerial personnel, appointed or resigned during the year. So you are not only reporting about the financial performance, but whatever is happening in the company in terms of KMPs, their appointment, payment of dividend, directors responsibility statement, information about the financial performance or financial position of your subsidiaries, your associates, your joint ventures, and extract of your annual report eventually is reported as per section 134 subsection 3 clause A. So these are the sections. Section 134 is very wide, which actually prescribe most of the key informations which you are supposed to report in your annual report, which you are supposed to disclose in your annual report. Suppose if you have some conservation of energy, technology, absorption and foreign exchange outgo, for that if you are reporting, you have some details, you have to report as per section 134 subsection 3 clause M, rule 8 of Companies Act rules 2014. Again, if there is some significant and material orders placed by passed by the regulators for company, either in favor of company or in against the company, you have to disclose it as per rule 8, clause 5 and subclause 7 of Companies Accounts rules 2014. Details of adequacy of internal financial control, if applicable, you have to, whether it is adequate, you have to provide details of that if you are saying it is adequate, what is the ground of that, what is the risk management policy, what is the risk mitigation policy of the company, that you have to report as per section 134 subsection 3 clause N. You have to report regarding the guarantees, the loans or investments if you have made. So these are the sections which actually stipulate you to prepare the report in this way. Nowadays we talk about the corporate social responsibility, as per section 135 of the Companies Act. The company has to, if you fulfill certain criteria, you have to spend 2% of your profit on indicative or listed CSR activities. So if a company is not able to spend that amount, that 2% of profit on CSR, listed CSR activities, as per section 134 subsection 3 clause O, rule 8 of Companies CSR policy rules 2014, they have to explain the reasons for not spending. And now there is a latest amendment that there is penal provisions also. Earlier it was not. Earlier only companies were reporting that this is our CSR policy, we could not spend, or if we have spent, what is the amount, and if some unspent balance is there, that also need to be reported. Details in respect of fraud reported by auditors. Suppose if your auditor has reported some fraud, that also need to be disclosed by the company in its annual report, which is a public document as per section 134 subsection 3 clause CA, that whatever your chartered accountant, whatever your auditor has reported in terms of fraud which has occurred in the company, they have to disclose. Related party transactions, I told you, justification for entering into RPTs, there is a form AOC2, which you will find in most of the cases, you will find that this form AOC2 is attached, section 134 subsection 3 clause H and rule 8 point number 2 of Companies Accounts rule 2014. Again section 188 subsection 2 also prescribes for the same. Now these sections seem to be very cumbersome for you, but try to understand that under section 134 there are different subsections, there are different clauses, sub-clauses, they are stipulating information, they are asking you to prepare a comprehensive report so that nothing should be left, everything should be reported to the shareholders. And apart from this, there is a secretarial audit, if there is some qualification into secretarial audit, those qualifications and the audit report is also supposed to be reported by the company in the annual report as per section 204 subsection 3. Details of whistle mechanism process implemented in the company, whatever is there for whistleblower policy, whatever policy you have, that you are supposed to report. So with this I tried to provide you a brief understanding about the mandatory disclosures as per the provisions of Companies Act 2013. In the next lecture of mine, I'll tell you about the LODR, that is listing obligations and disclosure requirements, which actually mandates those companies which are actually listed into some of the stock exchanges to prepare the report in such a way that they comply with those LODR requirements as well. So with this, I'm ending today's lecture. I hope you must have understood and enjoyed today's lecture of mine. Thank you so much.